dad came from Derry. He came from the north of Ireland. Never ever referred to it as Londonderry. My father, to the day he died, called it Derry. And a sweet story, he talked often about the trip from Ireland to the United States in the context of the hope that it held for him coming to that new country. And I remember him talking about entering into the harbor and seeing Ellis Island and all his desire for a better life that he had as a young Irish man. And in the early 2000s, I think just after 9/11, I had an opportunity to visit New York for the first time on the Staten Island ferry that takes you right past the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. And it was a significant and beautiful moment for me to remember. Yeah, thought of my dad, saw my dad as a young man with his desire and his ambition to find a new place in the New World.
I'm Dutch Indonesian. Mom's side is more Dutch, my dad's side more Indonesian. War was horrible, and how we were treated, we were put in concentration camps, in Japanese camps, and my dad somehow was not sent to Burma, and he was able to at times provide for us because there was no food. And so we lived there, and so Mom tells stories that we would not have survived had it not been for my dad. And he was very resourceful. So he fed us soup of weeds that he found that he knew were not poisonous, and even particular creature. So I consider us refugees. So we had to flee for our lives. All the properties were totally taken over. And so the Netherlands then said, yes, come to the Netherlands. So I was 8 years old when we left. And so I do not have many memories of my early childhood because things were not safe.
Mom and Dad were the significant mentors of our family faith life. We went to Sunday Mass together, we prayed the family rosary, we were faithful to First Fridays, First Saturdays, Lent, and all the holy days. We were steeped in parish Eucharistic devotions and processions. All four of my brothers were altar servers, and Dad was an usher. Our family life pretty much centered around the parish. And my religious upbringing was solidly Catholic, with 12 years of education at St. Michael's, from first grade through high school.
Kleine Landwirtschaft.
I'm Sister Pia. I was born in Kammern, the region of Darmstadt, and my parents had a small farm.
Und wie ich 2 Jahre alt war, da ist meine Mutter gestorben.
At the age of 2, my mother died.
Und mein Vater hat nach 2 Jahren wieder geheiratet.
After 2 years, my father remarried.
Und ich bin in die Schule gegangen, nach Kammern, in die katholische Schule.
I went into the parochial school in Kammern.
Und nach der Schule, 8 Jahre, bin ich in die normale Hauptschule gegangen.
After 8 years in the parochial school, I went to the regular upper grades.
Und nachdem ich zu Hause gearbeitet habe, musste ich in die landwirtschaftliche Berufsschule nach Dranbarchen gehen.
And after I'd worked at home, I had to enter into the agricultural school in Drambarchen.
I'm of Creole descent, which makes me French, German, Spanish, and Cherokee Indian. I was born November 24th, 1942, by a midwife. My mom and grandma spoke Creole, but none of us kids did. And what they did is they only spoke it when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about, or they were sitting on a bus and they had something to say about some of the women that were on the bus. And I used to tell them, one day there's gonna be somebody on this bus that knows Creole, and you're gonna be in trouble, you know, because don't do that, you know.
Both my parents and I have been taught, my brother, have been taught by Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose. And that is where I met the sisters. We were active in both Ascension and St. Michael's because of my parents' love for St. Michael's Parish. Going through elementary school, we knew the sisters. I also was taught by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet and have a love for them. But when it came time for me to enter high school, my option was St. Mary's Academy or St. Michael's, and so my heart drew me back to St. Michael's.
My parents, both of them homesteaded in Alberta, Canada. Their parents got sections of land that the Canadian government was giving away free because they wanted the area populated. So my dad actually went by train to Calgary, and from Calgary with ox cart, and some of his older brothers went out to their homestead and lived in a sod shack that first year.
Hey, my mom's family was smaller than my dad's. She was the oldest of 5 children. She and my dad met, as I mentioned, at St. Elizabeth's, and she attended the high school there. There were always very strong religious and faith-filled values in my family as I grew up. My dad married my mom on the steps of St. Elizabeth, and her family was from the Bay Area, and so there was only my one uncle, Paul, that came out, that was there from North Dakota, and we loved him dearly.
And in September 8th, 1960, I entered the Dominican Sisters. And I saw my father cry for the first time. And it wasn't out of sadness. He was happy. And he never mentioned anything to me. He never even spoke to me about it. But, and I thought, well, he really doesn't like it, and but it was just the idea, his daughter, of what his daughter had chosen to do, so.
When I told my oldest brother that I was entering the convent, his comment was, "I'll believe it when I see it." And but my parents were very, very supportive. We had a custom in our family when after we said grace, we said a Hail Mary. And that Hail Mary, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, were 3 Hail Marys a day for vocations. And my parents hoped that one of us would enter religious life. And so it did happen. And so I think my parents prayed that they didn't know which one, and that didn't make a difference, but I ended up being the answer to all my parents' prayers. So,
if I don't do this, I will regret not checking it out all my life. So don't worry, I'll be right back. I'm going to go and I'm going to find out if it's for me. I don't think it will be. So don't give anything away. Don't sell the car. Keep my clothes. I won't be gone long. And we know the rest of that story. While not easy, while not always easy, it has been a privilege to be in this life and to do the work that I've been gifted to do. And I feel so much gratitude for all the years that all the people in our lives from the assignments we've received.
I began in elementary school right after we were professed, and I was for 9 years in the junior high, and then 24 years I taught in our high schools, St. Elizabeth's, Flint Ridge, San Gabriel Mission. So played the circuit. Not only did I teach mathematics education, but I was teaching religion, and I was campus minister for our high schools.
I started part-time going down to the print shop and working with Michael, Julie, out for a while. And then when she made up her mind and they gave her permission to go to Chiapas, and I got it. And I've been in the print shop for quite a few years. So I've had it, for a long time, and I've updated it. Well, it's a lot better. We had the old flywheel press that did one copy at a time, and you had to hand set the type letter by letter, line by line. And I love that press. That was really, I like anything that's it takes time to do. That's why I like the computers, because you can manipulate and work, and design.
Later years, I worked out of O'Connor's as a visiting nurse, which was also a different experience. Patients would go home from the hospital, and yet they weren't quite ready to be on their own, so they would send nurses out to them to be sure everything was going okay. And you got into all kinds of neighborhoods and all kinds of families, and probably the most interesting experience I had was working for Queen's Care, which was an outreach program that the Franciscan Sisters had set up. And it was to provide care for those that simply did not have it. So it was mostly with homeless, and we'd work at homeless shelters and domestic violence shelters. And they would tell you anything and everything about their life, and a lot of them just how their life just broke down, either because of drugs or mental illness, or going to jail and coming out and trying to rebuild their life. And,
32 years of being a principal, but in each of the schools where I served, there were the ups and downs as life allowed, but it was that constant service with people and working with people that has to be one of the highlights of my life. Privilege of being an administrator. I loved every one of the schools that I worked in. However, my highlight has to be St. Michael's Elementary. I loved working in the inner city, working at South Central at the time. We went through a lot, including the Rodney King episode. The people were so wholesome, so good, and they would do anything for their children. And really, I would too.
Zu helfen.
And she entrusted me all the responsibility for the kitchen, for shopping, and then we started a big construction project to build out our kitchen.
Und Hygiene und alles. Und ich hatte in der Küche.
Hygiene was also an important element. And my responsibilities grew. Sister Anna, because of illness, often couldn't be there, and so I continued to carry forward. There were many interns who were children from the nearby school who would come to learn their craft of washing clothes and sewing and cooking, and they would come to me to learn cooking.
Baking.
And baking. It was my inner wish that I could learn so we could provide from our own land and could provide healthily. And it was not just the pigs and the cows and the sheep, but also we had our own garden.
Yeah.
And I got a call from Sister Mary Mark. We would like for you to come and be the first official Mother House administrator. And then, of course, a major highlight, December 1999, when the olives were being harvested again. And how NBC gave a report and was taken over by CNN, and when the newspapers came and Associated Press, especially Michelle Locke, and then it hit all the newspapers in the United States. And I loved the different people, the headlines, oil blossoming in the different things that they would say on those headlines. Crazy headlines. So, and I never forget, during the month of January 2000, almost every day I was entertaining an interviewer for magazines, for newspapers. San Francisco Chronicle, 2 interviews. LA Times, 2 interviews, even though they took it over from each other, still. So it was fun.
Working in the orchard and planting the orchard and getting it irrigated and getting in a well and an irrigation system, I find very exciting. Taking care of our chickens and our bees at this point. You know, and then we get to do the same thing at Marywood, where we just got our solar panels in. And probably the biggest thing we did out there, though, was the Santa Cruz Land Trust, which basically means it will be left as a wilderness and taken care of in whatever way the forest and the animals need care.
And spearheading a lot of that and bringing a lot of issues to the forefront and actually working in the dirt, like from in the dirt to the...
I had to clean my fingernails before I came. Yeah, so actually just yesterday they put out, the UN just passed a Care of Creation bill. 132 countries signed on it. Wow. Because people are becoming more and more aware of the fact we have a limited time to correct some of this.
The longest trek that I've ever done, and it was really the walk of a lifetime, was hiking the Camino de Santiago, 400 miles of it. That's in Spain, and I made that trek with Sister Mary Susanna and also my sister-in-law Karen. The 3 of us took off. It was an adventure that has impacted my my life a great deal. Somebody might say you walk every day, and we had 2 months that we did it in, and I thought, we're just a small little group here, but it changed our lives, spending that time together, meeting so many people. And I'd like to read one other quote that sticks with me. We are together with great joy, despite our tiredness and our difficulty with the language, such a deep respect among strangers who are not strangers anymore.
And she asked, what can we do?
And they would always ask, what can we do?
But ich hoffte immer, dass Gott wird was machen, dass es geht.
And I always hoped that God would act so it could continue here at Altenhohenhau.
Bis zuletzt, dann kam...
Till the end. And then Sister Gloria came once again in that year and said, we have to sell. And I kept hoping that's going to change.
Und Sister Imelda, wir gehen, alle Tage gehen wir in der Mittagszeit spazieren, walking.
And Sister Imelda, my fellow nun, and I would take a walk every day.
Und Schwester Margarita sagt, die war Breierin, sie sagt, ihr könnt Englisch sprechen.
And Sister Margarita told us both, you two know English.
We are living near River Inn.
And we lived right on the bank of the
Und
river
wir gehen
Inn.
all Tag walking here, spazieren.
And we could take our dogs for beautiful walks along the riverbank.
Und all people say, no, wir sollen nicht weggehen.
And all the people said we shouldn't leave.
The challenge of closing the convent is hard. 107 years at mission. And I know there are many sisters that have mixed emotions. We all do. But we realize It's an opportunity to turn a building over that has been blessed with the years of Dominican charism and the wonderful sisters that have walked the hallways and done the work that needed to be done in both the grade school and the high school. We are not leaving the parish per se, because both Sister Lawrence Marie and I at this moment are scheduled to come back and do some activities. We're just driving from another convent.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're leaving everything, but we're moving to other convents where we can live in the area and still commute and bring back our ministry of presence.
Which is a real blessing for the parish and for you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's not over.
Yeah.
It's only over when God calls me home.
I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do, any kindness I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. So that is a special mentor, a motto of my life.
It's seeing how good so many people are all the time. Yes, there are all these problems, but you know, there's a tremendous amount of good in it, and that's what's going to carry us forward. And I do truly believe that. I think if we keep our eye on what that goal is, who we are, and what we're called to, it will come through. No matter where you go in history, there's always been turmoil, there's always been battles, there's always been some kind of conflict. And yet, our God is walking with us, and it will be all right. It will be better than all right.
I guess Sister Mary Thomas believed me when I told her she didn't want me to teach. I would give the students the answers to the tests, and I don't have a discipline bone in my body. And then I say, thank you, God. Thank you, Sister Mary Thomas and Sister Renille, for bringing me home. And that's where I am.
And we are very, very grateful.
So much to learn, and life is so fascinating, and I'm so proud of our students at Flintridge and all that takes place there, and what bright young women they turn out to be. And then when I think at all of our schools, you know, ICA, Sacred Heart, St. Gabriel Mission, how we empower our young women to really be and to grow and to empower others. They learn, you know, they receive the tools, so now use them, you know, grow and be for others.
I think we're so fortunate to be living at this time, to be living now where we are. Because I really see us to be a bridge between what was and what will be. And I'm really eager for our congregation to embrace what's coming, to not be in denial or not to be afraid, but rather to be able to have enough faith and enough conviction of God's presence with us through all these years, these almost 150 years of the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose, to celebrate God's fidelity here and to trust that what's coming will be just as valuable, just as important. And we, you and I, have the ability to be the bridge from here to there. And I feel grateful for that. I feel challenged by it. I feel sometimes we don't know what we're talking about when we talk about the future. It's not clear to us. But what is clear is that fidelity. And what is clear is our commitment to the church through the work of Catholic education and service to the young, the poor, and the vulnerable. That's clear for us. So that same gift that we hold is the gift we'll give here. It will just be different. And we have the opportunity to shape that a little bit. That's exciting for me.